Okay, let's unpack this. You know that feeling.
Hmm.
It hits you when you're staring down like a massive project deadline, or maybe you've just started a new role, and the sheer volume of information you need to absorb feels like climbing Mount Everest in flip-flops.
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean.
It feels huge, complex, maybe even a little scary, and let's be honest, sometimes it just makes you want to close the laptop and, walk away.
That feeling of being completely overwhelmed,
Yeah.
it's universal.
It absolutely is.
What do you-
Facing something that feels too big to grasp is a classic trigger for stress, procrastination, or just shutting down.
And that's exactly what we're diving into today. We're pulling insights from a stack of sources you shared with us.
Right.
We've got some really practical strategies for managing difficult tasks from Active Collab, and then some fascinating research on how our brains actually process new information. That's from the NSW Department of Education's work on cognitive load theory. And these sources really tackle the challenge from two critical angles, don't they? It's how we structure the external work, the task itself,
Right.
and then how we optimize our internal process, how we actually learn and handle the information needed for that work.
So, our mission in this deep dive is really to pull out the most useful, actionable insights. We want to show you how managing both the task and your brain's processing capacity can help you cut through that overwhelm, boost your focus, and actually get things done, or,
Yeah.
learn things effectively.
Think of it as a shortcut to feeling capable, not crushed.
Exactly. Your profile often highlights that desire, right? To gain knowledge quickly, but without feeling overwhelmed.
And both of these sources speak directly to that challenge.
Right. So the Active Collab source notes that large tasks often feel multifaceted and intimidating. Makes sense.
Uh-huh.
And the work on cognitive load theory, or CLT, kind of tells us why that feels so heavy on the information side, trying to process too much new information at once, while it can be slowed down or even stopped.
And this points to a really fundamental limit in how our brains handle new data, our working memory, where the conscious processing happens. It has a very limited capacity.
Really? How limited?
It can only really juggle a small number of pieces of information at any given time, maybe around 4 concepts or ideas we're actively thinking about.
4. That's tiny. No wonder a giant report or some complex new subject feels impossible if we try to hold it all at once.
Precisely. And when that working memory gets overloaded with new information, it significantly hinders the transfer of that information to long-term memory.
Which is where the real learning happens, right?
That's where real lasting learning happens. So overload isn't just uncomfortable, it actually prevents learning.
And I can totally see how that ties back to the Active Collab point about stress and procrastination. If the task feels massive and your brain feels jammed trying to figure out where to even begin with the info,
The stress spikes.
yeah, and suddenly reorganizing your sock drawer seems like a perfectly reasonable alternative.
The feeling of overwhelm is often the signal that we're hitting that cognitive wall.
Okay, so let's look at the first powerful strategy for pushing through this. Breaking down the task itself. Active Collab calls this task decomposition or chunking or splitting. It's like a direct attack on that feeling of intimidation that comes from sheer size.
Yeah, and the sources make a strong case for why this works. Breaking things down improves efficiency, sure, but crucially, it reduces stress.
Key.
It makes planning and scheduling clearer, and you get that rewarding feeling of progress more often because you're completing smaller units. It transforms something vague and large into a more understandable, manageable, and achievable process.
So instead of build the entire website, you have like set up the database, design the homepage, write the About Us copy. Much better.
Exactly, and the Active Collab source gives us 8 steps to do this effectively.
8 steps. Okay.
The first step is foundational. Truly understand the task. What is the ultimate goal? What are the requirements? What's the deadline? Are there things that absolutely must happen before you can even start this part? Dependencies.
Right. So before you start dividing, know what you're dividing up and why. Makes sense. Step 2.
Step 2, break it down. This is the core action, taking that big task and splitting it into those smaller self-contained pieces.
Okay.
Their example of writing a report is great for this. The big task is write a report. The smaller steps could be conduct initial research, outline the structure, draft section 1, draft section 2, edit, proofread. Each is a distinct unit.
It immediately feels less like climbing a cliff face and more like Like a staircase with landings, much more manageable.
Doesn't it? Then step 3 is sequence the tasks. What order do these smaller steps need to happen in?
Okay, yeah, dependencies again. Research obviously comes before drafting.
Exactly. Identifying dependencies prevents you from getting stuck waiting for something else to be done. Step 4, estimate time for each small task.
The tricky part.
It gets easier with practice, but think about the complexity of that specific step and what resources you need.
Right. Then step 5 is prioritize. Which of these small tasks are most critical? Are some dependent on others? Are some higher priority for the overall goal?
Uh-huh. And the source mentions thinking about delegation here too, if it's a team effort.
Good point.
Prioritizing ensures you're spending your energy on the most impactful work at any given moment. Step 6, plan for breaks.
Oh, I like this one. Crucial.
It isn't just for rest. It's essential for maintaining focus and preventing burnout. Scheduling in breaks, maybe using a technique like Pomodoro, is a strategic part of the plan.
Totally. My brain definitely needs those resets. Step 7.
Track your progress. Visually seeing what you've completed on your list or maybe on a timeline or a Kanban board, whatever works for you.
Yeah, that's incredibly motivating, isn't it? And it helps you spot potential delays early on.
That sense of accomplishment from checking things off keeps the momentum going. And the final step, step 8, review and adjust.
So the plan isn't set in stone.
Absolutely not. Your plan is a living document. Regularly look at your progress. Did a task take longer than expected? Did something unexpected come up? Adjust your timeline, your priorities, or even your breakdown. It's dynamic.
Break it down, order it, estimate, prioritize, take breaks, track, and be ready to adapt. That's a really solid framework.
It really is.
The source also touches on microproductivity, applying this same idea of breaking tasks down to leverage, like tiny pockets of time.
Right. Got 5 minutes before your next meeting.
Maybe you can knock out one microtask from your list.
It's about making every bit of time count. And for teams, they emphasize how crucial clear communication and breakdown are for leveraging everyone's strengths and keeping things aligned. Makes sense.
Okay, so that framework helps us manage the external structure of the work itself, the doing. But what about the information, the complex ideas, the data, the concepts we need to learn or process to even do that work?
Yes.
That brings us squarely back to cognitive load theory.
Right. CLT is fundamentally about understanding how our working memory handles new information. And crucially, how to optimize that process to maximize learning.
Optimize. How?
Well, the core principle is that information we already know, stuff that's organized into mental structures called schemas in our long-term memory, that takes up much less space in working memory than completely new concepts.
Okay, so the more you understand something, the easier it is to think with it, less load.
Exactly. And because working memory is so limited, CLT research strongly supports guided, explicit instruction when you're learning something complex or completely new.
Rather than just being left to figure it all out entirely on your own.
Exactly. Trying to discover everything from scratch adds a huge burden to that limited mental workspace. It increases the cognitive load unnecessarily.
That makes so much sense. It feels incredibly draining to grapple with something totally foreign without any direction.
Yeah. And the NSW Department of Education source outlines 7 powerful strategies based on CLT to help optimize cognitive load, especially when you're presenting or learning new information.
7 strategies.
Okay. And they stress that the best approach depends on how complex the material is and how much the learner already knows. It's not one size fits all.
Right. Let's look at how these play out. Strategy 1, tailor to existing knowledge. It seems kind of intuitive.
It's foundational, really. Learning is most efficient when new information builds logically on what you already know. If the topic is complex or you're a beginner, you need to reduce the amount of new, unconnected information presented at once.
Lessen the load.
Lessen the load. If you're already familiar, you can handle more complexity. And drawing on prior knowledge helps activate those existing schemas, which also reduces the load of the new material.
They give that great example of teaching Newton's second law in Year 10 science, instead of just writing ESMA on the board.
Which could be overwhelming if the base concepts aren't solid.
Right. The teacher used a part-whole approach, first reviewing velocity, acceleration, mass, and force individually, making sure students understood these building blocks, then putting them together in the formula.
Yes, breaking down the components before combining them. Or the Year 4 English teacher introducing similes, first recapping the definition, brainstorming familiar examples, modeling how to use them with Think Alouds, and then using scaffolded questions. It's all about meeting the learner where they are and building step by step.
Okay, that makes sense. Strategy 2, Use worked examples. I can definitely see how this would cut down on that mental strain.
Absolutely. When learning a new skill or concept, seeing a complete step-by-step solution to a problem is incredibly effective, instead of trying to figure out both what the answer is and how to get there.
Which is like double the work for your brain.
Right. You can focus your working memory entirely on understanding the process. How did they get there?
Like the year 3 English example showing is not right next to isn't, so you see the transformation clearly.
Exactly. Or the year 10 English teacher putting the modern English translation right next to the original Shakespeare. You see the meaning explained, which helps solidify the underlying concept or rule.
Okay. Strategy 3. Gradually increase independent problem solving. This feels like the natural next step.
It is. This is the progression from worked examples.
So once you've seen how it's done, you start doing more of it yourself.
Precisely. As proficiency grows, too much step-by-step guidance can actually become inefficient, even counterproductive. It's called the expertise reversal effect.
Huh. Too much help is bad.
If you already know some steps, having to process the guidance for them takes up unnecessary working memory space. It becomes redundant. So you gradually reduce the hand-holding, maybe omit some steps in later examples, or just give fewer worked examples and more problems to solve independently.
Ah, like the year 10 maths teacher, providing fewer and fewer steps in geometry proofs as students get the hang of it.
Or the year 8 Spanish teacher not including vocabulary lists for words the students already knew well for translation exercises. They don't need that support anymore.
Got it. Okay, strategy 4. Cut out inessential information. This one feels like it should be obvious, but maybe it's not always applied.
You mean like clutter?
Yeah, basically.
Exactly. Anything that is extra or irrelevant information you already know, presented again. Unrelated pictures or, funny cartoons, or even presenting the same information in multiple formats simultaneously.
Like reading text aloud from a slide that the audience is also reading.
Yes. That's a classic example of the redundancy effect. It adds to working memory load without helping learning. It's just noise, really.
The year 3 geography example is perfect. Choose the map worksheet without the cartoon and without a key that just repeats what's already clearly labeled on the map. Keep it clean.
Or in year 8 history, if you have a quote on a slide, either let students read it themselves and you expand on it orally, or perhaps summarize key points orally while they glance at the quote, but don't just read the whole dense text aloud while they're trying to read it too. That taxes the working memory.
Right. Strategy 5. Present all essential information together. This addresses the problem of splitting your attention, you said.
Exactly. Try and look back and forth between different things.
Yeah, that's annoying. Diagram here, text over there.
Right. If information that needs to be understood as a single unit is separated, maybe diagram on one page and its description on the next, or an explanation now and a visual much later, your working memory has to work extra hard. It has to hold on to one piece while you look for or recall the other, and then try to integrate them mentally.
That sounds exhausting just describing it.
It is. So putting related information together physically reduces this mental juggling act.
Like the year 7 English teacher integrating the definitions and stress marks for iambic heptameter directly into the poem text instead of having a separate key somewhere else.
Exactly. Or the year 3 math teacher putting the visual representation of a word problem, like blocks or a drawing, right next to the written problem statement. Integrated.
Makes sense. Okay, strategy 6. Simplify complex information orally and visually. How is this different from the others?
It's a bit nuanced. For really complex information, presenting it using both auditory, so spoken words, and visual, like diagrams or flowcharts, simultaneously can be very effective.
Why is that?
Well, the idea is that your brain has somewhat separate processing channels for auditory and visual information in working memory. So using both means you can potentially handle more information at once than just using one channel. You explain orally while showing a visual aid.
Okay, so this isn't reading text aloud that's also on a slide.
No, that's strategy 4, redundancy. Avoid that.
And it's not just putting text and a related image together.
That's strategy 5, integration. This is different. Strategy 6 is about using different types of essential information across the two channels, like showing a diagram visually and explaining it orally.
Gotcha. Like the year 7 music teacher explaining time signatures orally while showing the notation on the board and pointing to the parts.
Perfect example. Or the year 6 science teacher explaining the stages of electricity generation orally while showing a flowchart that illustrates the process. Keep the spoken part concise and make sure it aligns closely with what they're seeing. It's called the modality effect.
Okay. And finally, strategy 7. Encourage visualization.
Right. Now, this strategy is best used after you've already learned the content reasonably well.
So not for brand new stuff.
Not for initial learning, no.
Yeah.
Asking yourself or asking students to mentally recreate a concept, a procedure, or a diagram forces you to retrieve that information from long-term memory and process it in working memory.
Ah, it's like practice for your memory.
Exactly. It strengthens the knowledge and helps build stronger schemas, aiding automatic recall later on. It's a consolidation step.
So it's mentally rehearsing the information you've already learned.
Yes. And because it requires retrieval and processing, it's actually a heavier mental lift. That's why it's for when you've already got a solid grasp.
Like the Year 4 maths teacher asking students to visualize the steps they would take to read a bus timetable after they'd practiced it.
Or the Year 6 PE teacher having students close their eyes and visualize performing the correct cricket stance and grip after they've been taught and practiced it. It helps move the knowledge from "I understand this" to "I can automatically recall and apply this." It's the imagination effect.
Wow. Okay. So if we kind of zoom out here, we're talking about tackling complexity from two sides, aren't we?
Seems that way.
There's breaking down the external task into smaller, manageable steps using task decomposition. That makes it feel less intimidating, lets us plan, lets us track progress.
Right. Managing the doing.
And then there's using these principles from cognitive load theory to manage how our internal brain processes the information related to that task, making sure we're not overloading that very limited working memory.
Managing the learning or processing. They really are two sides of the same coin, aren't they? It's all about managing complexity and respecting capacity.
Whether it's the capacity of your time and resources to do a big project.
Or the capacity of your brain to process new information.
It seems incredibly powerful to think about both simultaneously. Using task decomposition to make the doing achievable step by step, and using these CLT strategies to make the learning or processing absorbable step by step.
These aren't just abstract theories. They are really practical guides for cutting through that feeling of overwhelm and boosting your effectiveness, whether you're learning or executing.
They provide clear frameworks for approaching pretty much any daunting challenge, whether it's that mountain of new information you need to learn for a job or that intimidating project deadline staring you down.
Absolutely.
So the big takeaway from this deep dive seems pretty clear then. When you're facing something that feels too big to handle, first, take a breath. Then break down the task itself into smaller pieces you can actually tackle one at a time.
Make it manageable externally.
Exactly. And as you engage with the material or the steps involved, be really mindful of how you're feeding that information to your brain. Simplify it. Integrate related bits. Structure it in ways that respect your working memory's limits.
Give your brain the best chance to process and learn effectively by managing its load. Don't overwhelm the system.
It really makes you consider things differently, doesn't it? If breaking down tasks helps us manage complexity in the world around us, and managing cognitive load helps us manage complexity inside our own minds.
Right.
What other daily struggles or learning challenges could become clearer, maybe less overwhelming, and just more manageable if we applied these simple principles more consciously?
That's a great question to ponder. Where else could we apply this thinking?